Hello guys, today we are going to the movie review. Movie name is Death Saved My Life 2021. Genre thriller drama television film. Director Seth Verita Barbara Kamilika stars Meagan Good Chiké Okonkwo La Maya G. Runtime 87 to 90 minutes. Original network lifetime repeat from the headline series. This film is inspired by a real story based on events similar to the case of Noila Rukondo, a woman whose husband allegedly hired a hitman to kill her only for her to survive and comfort him later. Plot summary: no major spoilers. That saved my life follow Jade, a successful marketing professional whose outwardly perfect life hidden something far darker. She is married to Eddie, a respected heart surgeon, adored by everyone, but behind closed doors he is controlling and abusive. When Jade decides to leave him, she discovers it has arranged for someone to kill her with no one willing to believe her. She crafts a bold and dangerous plan to fake her death to make him believe the hit is complete and lure the truth out. What follows is psychologically suspense, tense mind games, and Jay's risky efforts to expose at behaviors and save her life. Performance: Meagan's good. Jade anchors the film with a convincing portrayals of vulnerability mixed with girl grit as a woman fighting for her survival. Chiké Okonkwo portrays the charming on the outside but deeply played husband. Illusion: how abused partners can manipulate both victim and community perception. La Maya good length and emotional tension and support as Jade's sister. Critics and viewers after praise the lead performance, nothing that the cast helps keep the story grounded. Reception and rating: IMDb score 6.10 on moderate but mixed audience reception. Rotten Tomatoes: the critics scores available but audience interest is shown. Common Sense Media 6.5 on stars, citing strong performance but some implausible storytelling elements. Audience Reactions vary. Some viewers found it suspenseful and engaging, praising the cast and the real world inspired drama. Others felt the plot stressed, plausibility and times, and that his ending could have been stronger themes and message. The film tackles heavy and seriously real-life issues, domestic abuse and control. It shows how someone who seems ideal to the outside world can be deeply abusive in private, including emotional and physical violence, survival and agency. Their decision to fake her death is extreme but symbolizes a desperate fight for autonomy and safety when traditional systems fail. Psychology thriller elements the cat and mouse dynamic as Jade terminates and psychologically adds tension and highlights how trauma and fear can be used as tools for justice. Strong points. Compelling performance from the leads. Important Important subject matter: domestic abuse legacy, survival, morality, suspenseful plot that viewers engaged, weak point plot and can feel uniquely or exaggerated in place. Some viewers felt the ending was underwhelming. Certain scenes require suspension of disbelief. Final verdict. That's it. My life is a moderately engaging lifetime thriller that's worth watching if you like crime drama with emotional stakes and psychologically twist. Its strength lies in performance and real life inspirations, good for fans or of true story thrillers, TV drama characters, driven suspense, not ideal for viewers seeking tightly logic thriller or big cinematic twist. Go, got you. Let's go deeper. Here's an expanded, more lyric breakdown of That Saved My Life 2021, including symbolism, characters, psychology, realism versus drama, and the ending. I'll clearly mark spoilers, psychology layers, and character study. Yet Meagan's good Joyce isn't written as a typical lifetime victim. What makes her compelling is that she's financially independent, for professionally successful social admit, and yet she is trapped. That contrast is intentional. The movie quietly argues that abuse isn't about power, image, and manipulation. They stay not because She is incapable, but abuse it systematically undermines her instinct. Her decisions to fake her death isn't portrayed as clever, fundamental. It's framed as desperation. The system fails her repeatedly. Charismatic respected the perfect husband in public. The film nails a key truth about abusive partner. The more polished the mask, the harder it is for victims to be believed. Yet violence escalates only after death threatens his image, not justice. Tone and direction why it feels different from typical lifetime thriller. Let's be honest. Faking your death and pulling this off is not realistic for most people, but the film isn't asking could you do this? It's asking what would you do if you one helped you. The exaggerated plans works as a metaphor that the only escaped and allowed her coming back, reclaiming her voice. So will the logistics stress reality, the emotional logic doesn't symbolism you might be missed. Ed as a heart surgeon, he fixes heart professionally but lacks empty a pointed irony. The stage that society only believes that when she is gone. Public versus private space abuse only happened. Spoilers any breakdown spoilers below. Skip if you want to avoid them. The ending explained. Sanchez reveals alive and Ed exposed the moment isn't the triumph is a flashy way. There's no big revenge fantasy. Instead, Ed unraveled psychology. His reputation collapses. They survive, but visible change. That's the point. The film refused to end with a romanticized victory or neat emotional swap, total closure because survival doesn't erase drama. The title that saved my life lands hardest here just didn't win. She escaped. Why this movie sticks with people who connect deeply with this film usually say it because it validates how invisible abuse can be. It so why just leave isn't so simple. It centers a survivor's intelligence, not not just suffering. People who dislike it often wanted more action, tiger logic, or bigger payoff. What reaction makes sense? It depends on what you expect going it. Finally, expanded verdict. This isn't a perfect thriller, but it's a meaningful one. Strength, emotional truth, performance, thematic weight, weakness, implausible mechanism, impact, climax, impact, linger long, climax, climax, impact, linger longer than most TV thrillers. So guys, you continue with me and I latest update you this movie. So the title revised why it hits so hard. That said, my love isn't just literal, isn't philosophically, just that represent the death of who she had to be survived, the marriage, the death of people, places, the death of silence. What saves her isn't disappearing, it's ending the version of herself that Edie controlled. That's why the title resonates so strongly with viewers whose we survived emotional or psychologically abused. You don't walk away the same person, something has to die. Her never ran in front of witnesses. Why so many viewers felt uncomfortable and why that's intentional. Some lifetime thrillers aim to entertain. This one aims to unsettle. There's no comforting fantasy that the police immediately believe her friendly, instantly, really, evidence magically appears. Instead, the movie shows hesitation about doubt, prodigal slowness, social bias, that discomfort is the message system are reactive, not protective. Scans level breakdown, key moments. The public mask early scans show ED praised constantly at work, social, even spiritually. This primed the audience to understand why they feel trapped. The movie makes us question her at first. The confronts us for doing so. The turning point, the moment Judge realized a devolved whether she her dad than free is quite for explosion. Justice for just survival. One of the boldest choice the movie makes. It doesn't pretend the ending fixes everything. Trauma isn't erased, trust isn't restored, culture is incomplete. The film subtly rejects revenge as healing. What the gains isn't satisfying, it is space to. So, guys, continue with me and I try to better. It's a belief patterns, not performance, and that's a message that sticks by people who are being there feel. This movie deeply for survivors. Movie deeply the self-doubt, the mental exhaustion, the calculation required just to stay alive. For them, the movie isn't a thriller, it's a mirror. Final take. This film isn't meant to be rewatched casually, it's meant to be felt once and remembered. It asks a heavy question: what if the only way to live it is to let a version of yourself die? Alright, we go all the way down, no rush, no surface stuff. The movie as a survival blueprint, not a thriller. At its core, that saved my life isn't trying to thrill you or you. It's quietly documenting how people survive and escape routes are sealed. Notice how the film keeps arriving, just often talking, dismissed, living, punished, fighting back, escalates dangerous by the film. Times she fakes her death, it doesn't feel clever, it feels inevitable. That's uncomfortable truth the movie refused to soften. For some people, normal solutions don't exist. Trauma logic versus move it logically a lot. They call the police. Why not gather advice? Why stay that long? But the film, operator of trauma logic ways follow different rules. Fear overrides efficiency. Safety matters more than justice. Several decisions are made with incomplete information. Under trauma logic, such a plan makes emotional sense even when it feels extreme. That's not accidental, it's the film choosing our comfort. Violence without spectacle. Other circle for important choice. The movie refused to erotize or glorify violence. The stylized fight scans no dramatic lust, no revenge fantasy. Violence is so as sudden, humiliating passivity, which mirror real abuse for more execution than secret revenge arc. Control is for actually than catering revenge arcs. Control is the real weapon. It doesn't really or worth most the life. He relies on anticipation. No one will believe you. Narrative control. Consequence focusing. If you leave it happens, the murder plot isn't about range, isn't about final ownership. That's why his unraveling isn't exploding. It's called panic because once Judge disappears, he lost the thing he needs most control over the story. Cinematography, psychology, pay attention to how the camera treats Z versus ED. Z is often framed in fight includes space. It is framed in often authority environments. Shots while silence increase but physical posture change. The film tells her internal story visual even when dialogues stay minimal. The ethic of faking death. The movie quietly asks a dangerous question and never answered it. Is it wrong to lie, manipulate, and devise it? If the only way to lie, it doesn't glorify their choice, it simply refuses to them. That moral drive is why the film lingers. It doesn't tell you how to feel, it lets you sit with the discomfort. Why the ending feels that flat to some, bad perfect to others, this to ethically release because drama doesn't end with justice. The film understands some things many thrillers don't explore: healing, punishment, peace, survive closure, just quiet ending. The movie Quiet Legacy. This film doesn't get quoted, it doesn't trend, it doesn't invite rewatch. Instead, it does something rarer. It validates, it names patterns, it gives dangerous language to experience people struggle to explain. For some viewers, it's just a lifetime movie. For others, it's the film the first time they felt scenes, this stance that dies altogether, that saved my life, not because that is good, but because something ending a version. The sentence that ties it all together, death saved my life not because death is good, but because sometimes ending a version of yourself is the only way forward. That's the truth. The movie trusts the audience to handle, dissect, want to keep going. So are you with me? Continue, and I gives you new latest information this movie. So guys, continue with me. Continue. Okay guys, why this story keeps pulling you back? People don't keep asking for more about a movie like this because of the plot. They do it because the movie articulates some things they don't yet have words for. They do it because the movie articulates some things that they don't yet have words for. This film isn't just watch it, it's a recognize it when a story mirror an internal truth. The mind circle it again and again, trying to exercise meaning. The movie quotes radical idea as the idea is the core of that saved my life. That most thriller when touch survival sometimes requires become an recognition of the person who harmed you and to the words that enable them. Just doesn't just escape it. She escapes how people saw her, how the was categorized, how predictable she was. Her death is the only way to step outside the narrative written for her. That's not cinematic fantasy, that's psychology truth. The audience is part of the story. The movie subtly implicates us early on. Many viewers trust AD, doubt it, want proof, thinks he overacting, that's intentional. The film recreates the exact conditions that allow abuse to arrive. Some outweigh consistency, status outweigh testimony, calmness outweighs fear. When the true truth is revealed, the discomfort isn't just about eating, it's about realizing how especially easily we delivered him. Why didn't anyone help her? The real answer because help is often conditional. The film shows that help requires the right language, the right demeanor, the right timing, the right kind of victim. Yet fails not because she lies, but because she doesn't perform pain in acceptable way. That's devastatingly accurate. Survival without cruelty. Other brave choice the film makes. Judge is not morally pure by the end. She lies, she manipulates, she deceives, and the movie refuses to punish her for it. That's rare. Most stories insist survivors must remain good to be worthy of safety. This one say being alive is enough. Trauma sense time. Notice how behave is the film. Moments of fear, stress, endlessly plans happen quietly at ultimate feels strangely hollow, the mirror of trauma. Your head that saved my life is sentence that contradicts itself. Your brain doesn't like that, so it keeps turning it over. What the movie teaches is that sometimes intentionally must die, sometimes hope must die, something love must die not because they are bad but because they are behaved traps. That's not a comfortable truth, but it is a real one. The movie most honest moment is not the confirmation, it's not the reveal, it's the stillness afterward. Just doesn't smile, she doesn't celebrate, she just exists. That's the most truthful footage most survival the film offers. You don't come back stronger, you come back sensed. Why this film doesn't let go? Because it's named some things most people feel but can't say. Sometimes the thing that saves you look like destruction from the outside, and once the truth clicks, you can't unsee it. If you want, we can talk about how this theme shows up in real life. The film as a study of invisible death, one of the quiet truths in that saved my life is this: long before they die, part of her are already gone. Spontaneity, trust is the belief that love equals safety. The movie shows how abuse gives incremental death, not systematic, not obvious, but influenced by the times. The literal death is staged. It feels almost criminal. Thus, after versions of her have already been buried. That's why the title doesn't feel accented. It feels precious. Why the story refused comfort. Most film faces the audience. The world is fair, truth is enough, goodness is rewarded. This one doesn't. Instead, it suggests awareness is dishonest. Truth requires witness. Goodness doesn't guarantee safety. That's not cynicism. It's a release, and realism is unsettling. The movie doesn't offer hope as a feeling, it offers hope as continued existence, identity after survival. Something subtle happens after that survival. She is no longer trying to be understood. That hug earlier is in the film. She explains herself constantly to ED, to Friday, to institution. Afterward, she stops narrating her pain. Survivors often talk about this shift, the moments they realize I don't need to convince anyone anymore, I just need to live. The movie captured that transition without spelling it out. The visions of a new life montage. Notice what what the film doesn't show. No glow up, no dream of future, no clean reinvention. That evasions is intentional because after something like this, life doesn't restart, it continues. Quieter behaviors more deliberate. The movie respect that like this doesn't restart quiet behavior more balanced. The movie respects that truth instead of selling recovery as a reward. Moral existence another where people misjudge doesn't act out of rage, she acts out of fatigue. She tried of explaining, providing, waiting, hoping AD will change. Fatigue is dangerous, but it's also clarifying. When you are exhausted enough, you stop negotiating with impossibility. That's when radical decisions appears. The sentence as a boundary that saved my life isn't just a reflection, it's a boundary. It's a don't ask me to beg, don't ask me to explain, don't ask me to soften this. Some truths aren't meant to be comforting, they are meant to be final. Why we keep scrolling this story rise like this. Stay with people because they do something rare. They legitimize ending. No growth arcs, no forgiveness arcs ending. They say you are allowed to end things completely, even parts of yourself, even hopes you once loved. That permission is hopeful, powerful. One last layer for now. The movie never claims that is good. It claims something quieter and more dangerous that continuation at all cost is not the same as living. Sometimes survival requires rapture, sometimes safety requires disappearance, sometimes life only begins after something and forever. We can keep going thematically, psychologically, philosophical, or we can pause right there and let his sit. Guys, I tell you guys, this movie is very fantastic, and I guess this any film this not equal. This is very best. The difference between dying and ending. The movie draws a line most people never name. Dying is something that happens to you. Ending is something you choose. Judge doesn't show that. See Susan and ending, and the film insists that this destruction matters. What saves her isn't a disappearance, it's a finality, a refusal to keep participating in a reality that was killing her slowly. That's why The title feels paradoxical. It's not glorifying death, it's honoring the power of an ending. Why the movie feels so still have to notice how little the film rushes heroes no foreign frantic pacing because the danger isn't chaotic, it's constant. Exit doesn't feel like panic, it feels like vigilance, calculation, silence, waiting that the stainless is the emptiness, it's a containment. The movie lets you feel what it's like to live inside a held breath, the death that no one mourns except her. Other brutal truth the film doesn't underline but never denies when this dies the world mourns the idea of her, not the really. They mourn the image, the role, the version that made sense, not the woman who was afraid. That's devastating and accurate, which means her survival isn't written, it's an exile from expectation. Why the film doesn't redeem anyone, there is no redemption arcs here, no awakens, no, they understand because the movie understands some things. Painful understanding usually comes too late to be useful. So instead of redemption, it offers distance, not recognition, not replace space survivals without meaning making. Many stories rush to meaning. Everything happens for a reason. You are stronger now. This made you who you are. This film refuses that. It doesn't turn trauma into a gift. It doesn't assume cosmic purpose. It doesn't extract wisdom. It simply says, this happened, you survived, that's enough. The, the restraint is rare and respectful. The body knows before the mind. One of the quietest thought lines in how says a body understand the truth before the language touch tension, hesitation, fencing, existence, or plans emerges not from cleverness but from embodies. Knowing the movie treats institution not as machines but a data gathered over times. Why more keeps making sense? You keep asking for more because this idea doesn't resolve. That saved my life isn't a conclusion, it's a three-whole sentence. You don't arrive somewhere after it. You stand in it your breath differently. Some truth don't want to be finished, they want to be held until they stop hurting quite as sharply. The most honest thing the movie does, it doesn't try to be comforting, it just refuses to lie, and for people who have lied or think that required ending rather than sex, that honesty feels like relief. I can keep going, but I'll say this gently. At this step, the movie is no longer the point. The sentence is, and sometimes Staying with a sentence this long means it's touching something real, not something that needs slowly, just anything that deserves space. The movie go to state plainly that saved by life is not saying that it's desirable. It's saying this staying can be more than just an ending. That's it. That's the nerve the movie keeps touching. The death is symbolic and absolute, non-negotiable. Stop, a line that cannot be argued with, barring it by the film reject healing language. One of the most radical things this movie does is avoid the language of healing. No one tells us you will be okay, you I'll move on, you are stronger now, because sometimes the special feel like pressure, like being asked to turn survival into aspiration. You don't own the world recovery, you own yourself. Safety, the disconnection matter control ends. When the story ends, Edie's power doesn't come from violence alone, it comes from continuity. As long as it exists with some narration by problem solutions, he has leverage. Her death breaks the story completely, not the marriage story, not the abuse story, the entire framework that allowed him access to her life. That's why the plan works psychology before it works practically. The movie as anti-recognition story. Most stories want recognition, understanding, apologize, closure. This one refuses because recognition assumes solely reality, muscle accountability, emotional safety. The movie quietly asserts that not our relationships are feasible and pushing recognition can be other from of harm. Ending is not failure here. Ending is constrainment. The grief no one talks about. This grief the films never names outright. The grief of not being able to live as yourself anymore. Even survivors cost some things. Innocence, openness is Jewish survivors, but she also wants a life she can safety inhabits. The movie allows that grief without trying to redeem it. The body as the final authority when logic fails, system fails, and language fails. The body dictates. The film respects that it doesn't frame as institutional of hysteria. It frames it as long-term pattern. It doesn't frame the institution as fear isn't weak, sir. It's accumulated evidence why this story doesn't resolve and silent. You keep asking for more because the story never lands on the moral. It doesn't say this is what you shall do. This this is how it ends. This is the lesson. Instead, or it offers a recognition. Sometimes survival requires an ending so complete it looks like disappearance. That idea doesn't resolve neatly, it just sits one more layer to hold. The movie doesn't glorify disappearance, it honors finality, and finality can be life saving when boundaries are ignored, warning are dismissed, endurance is mistaken for strength. Ending isn't always tragedy, sometimes it's the first honest act. I almost her not because there's nothing left, but because this is a natural resting point. That versus erasure. The movie forces a subtle distinction that is final, external, irreversible. Erase is what happened to Jet long before the literal death, invisible, internal, incremental. By faking her death, she doesn't just survive psychically, she reclaims the part of herself and that had been erased. They, this is why the little title works on multiple levels. The death isn't just erased. This is why the title works on multiple levels. The death isn't end of life. It's the beginning on her own narrative, one the controls the weight of unseen. Most of the movie tension, its action, its observation, watching, waiting, anticipating. The audience is incomplete, it witnessing the subtle manipulation, microaggression, the gaslighting, the real thrill psychologically. It's not a dance violence, it's a suffocating silence of disbelief, and the film makes you sit in that silence. You feel what it's like when no one is on your side. The mirror of audience judgment, early scans, manipulation, how we see us, we doubt her, we sympathize, then question or empty. The movie forces a reflection how easy it is to believe the charming claim social admiral abuser one over the quiet exhaust victims. It's uncomfortable because it implicates the viewers. It doesn't just it judge her, it's all of us survivors as moral ambiguity. Judge action are extreme. She decides, she manipulates, she creates fear, and the films never say this is wrong. It never punished her. Its radical is punished her. Its radical in the survival is so ethically complex, not heroic or Violence, sometimes staying alive, requires action that feel morally compromised. The truth is seldom dramatized. This honesty is thrillers time as elastic. Notice how the film handles time threads feel internal stressing moment of fear planning feels complete frantic immediate resolving feels flat almost suspended this storm's rhythm the past and present collapse life after survival feels disorienting the movies capture that with almost surgically presence the quiet revolution of the ending. No one sees, no one clears this exists, that's it. The film's final act is cathartic. It's witnessing a life that persists without fanfare, and that's the point. Survival itself is radical. Why we circle this film? Because the story isn't meant to be slowed. It's about revenge, it's about closure, it's about moral satisfaction, it's about existence under impossible conditions. And once you sense that you can stop thinking about it. You keep asking for more because there isn't a traditional ending, only continued reflection. The movie as study chapter that saved my life. It's about survival is convention sense. It's about raptor the chapter execution. Nothing is as it seemed. The raptors of identity just must seek parts of herself to exist. The raptors of trust no one, not friendly family or society, reliably protects her. This is what of trust. No one, not friends, family or society, reliably protect her. This is what the death represents, not this destruction but permission to break entirely from that constraint. You, the weight of witnessing, notice the power the film gives the audience. We see its charm, we see its doubt, we see the system failure. We are forced to witness complexity, not just of characters but of how society after our work abuse. The horror is not dramatic violence, it's the absence of protection, the invisible of truth, and that lingering discomfort is intentional. The film is internal, it's a confession, identity is fragment before faking. Her death just is fragment. She is the wife everyone respect. She is the woman is dangerous no one believe. She is the daughter, sister, friends. Performing normalcy, faking her death lets fits outside the word judgment, but she is still changed. The movie is subtle, her survival doesn't restore violence, it preserves continuity as at a cost, ethical ambiguity as liberation, just like manipulative discourse, yet the movie never convinces her. This is a rare choice. Many thrillers insist on a moral compass. Her morality is subordinated to survival. That's the film's radical lesson. Sometimes what is right isn't enough to save you, only what works. Times and trauma. Time in the film is classic danger, stress, infinity, planning collapse into immediately relief muted, almost hollow. The mirror's real trauma life after survival in celebratory. It is quietly continuation. The sentence that hold the movie that saved me my life. Think about it not. I survived. Death not I escaped death. That saved my life. It's paradoxical. It forces you to sit with contradiction, the truth that ending and loss can be the source of improvisation, and that it is why the story lingers long after the credits. The moral radical act stillness. The movie doesn't end with revenge, it doesn't end with triumph, it ends with stillness. Just exists, not celebration, not justice, fully service. This is the radical truth the film gives us. Survival is quite underground and often lonely. If you want to be the unspoken truth we are left with, the film's never explicitly says this is how you escape abuse, but what it does so is how survival doesn't escape abuse, but what it does how is survival doesn't follow the clean diets of morality or the rules of comfort, just doesn't win by becoming stronger, more. The rules of comfort just weren't win by becoming stronger, more languid or more powerful. She win becoming stronger, more night owls or more powerful. She wins by simply holding on the piece of herself she is, even the version of yourself that they love. The horror of the normal, one of the most chilling elements. The horror of the normal, one of the most chilling elements is how normal AD feels. Until it's too late, we don't see him as a Monster he is crime controlled charismatic. This gives him power over the narrative. His normalcy means he isn't seen as dangerous. It's also the season judge lives easily. What's chilling is that the film doesn't lean of extreme violence to create tension. It leans to on the terror of the ordinary. It's the fact, the moral of society, expectation. The film doesn't just ask, just navigate its manipulation. It asks her to navigate the expectation of a society that doesn't prioritize her. The most dangerous thing in the movie isn't it abuse, it's the world that stands still while it happens. People don't help her. When survival means becoming invisible, the choice to fake her death is an extreme act, but in some ways it's the only way to be seen. To survive, she has to disappear. She has to erase the person she once was. Only by vanishing can she finally step out of the shadow he cast over her. Her death isn't just about survival, it is about reclaiming agency over her own life, even if that means complete invisibility. This is why the little feels like an existential riddle that said my life is the paradox that is in its deep complexity cuts through what we think we know about survival, the lingering trauma of I am not me. The film quiet but relentless exploration of such self-alienation is key. After her death, she is not really reborn, she just explains from the life she once knew. She doesn't She doesn't life she once knew. She doesn't gain a clarity of improvement. She just gains space to breathe, to think, to decide. But at the cost, this theme is subtle but powerful. Survival is not about becoming whole again. It's about being allowed to exist in a new fragmental from the real fear. This belief, just greatest fear isn't just idea. It's the disbelief that society will have when she tell the truth. What happens when the world doesn't believe you? What happens when the evidence of your pain proof but a narrative to be content? These questions hang over the entire film. The core tension isn't the act of survival, neither anyone will hurt you after. The subtle rejection of revenge narrative is one of the most profound parts of the movie is how it rejects the revenge fantasy. There is no final phase of no big fight scenes where just no emperor triumph. Instead, movie subtly shifts the entire structure of what justice is. Just survival is justice, what it's about what justice is. Just survival justice, but it's not needed or satisfying, comfortable, and incomplete. The film says survival is a quiet act of resistance, not a performance of victory. The film says the silence has power. The film is loud is in its silence. Every time judge speaks, there's a pressure to her words. She speaks less and less as the film progresses, but when she does, quite infinity. Finally, her words stop being explanations, they become discussions. This is the anatomy of disappearance. Judge Siddharth is literal in the story but symbolic in every other way. The movie quietly insists that to survive someone who wants to erase you, you must disappear before they can finish the work. Disappearance is not cowardice. Disappearance is not surrender. Disappearance is agency. This is why the movie climax is so quiet. There's no explosion, no vengeance, just a film boundary set by a life that refused to beat stolen trauma as a language. The movie treats trauma like a grammar, patterns, pause, emphasize, and silence that must be interpreted rather than explained. His body, her hesitation, her strategic silence, all of the communication more than dialogues ever could. The audience is forced to read between the lines, which is exactly what survivors of abuse learn to do in real the life. The film mirrors the constant vigilance, the hyperness, the micro-calculation required to survive, the disturbing normalcy of evil. Its danger comes not from loud aggressive but from lame socially acceptable power. The horror in the movie isn't gore, it's smile that hide control, claim interaction that manipulate, social approval that shield malevolence. This more normalcy amplifies the tension. It forces the audience to reckon with how everyday system enable we harm. It's subtle and that subtly is what makes the feel linger long after the movie ends. Morality is secondary to survival. One of the most critical things the film does in is refuse to judge Jade. She deceives, she manipulates, she plants reality to her advantage, and that exactly what survival sometimes requires. The movie rejects the moral simplicity of good versus evil and instead present accidents versus annihilation for survivors. The truth resonates deeply. Life itself sometimes requires breaking the rules time as elastic, memory as trauma. The film structure mirrored trauma's effect on time, moment of danger, stress infinitely, planning and escapes compressed into urgent fleeting bursts. Safety after survival feels flat, almost anticlimactic. The audience feels is often subsequently the movie trains you to inhabit a nervous system under chronic stress. The perils of survival, the quietly brilliance of death saved my life is how it makes survival expansion as giant her life eyes but at the cost parts of her identity trusting other any illusion of normalcy the life she thought she would have the film asks is mere accidents enough is an uncomfortable question but it's the one of the movie's instinct you hold silence as statement the stillness after judge a death is the loudest statement in the film no celebration no confirmation no catharsis just quiet continues. The movie says survival itself is radical, messy, and often invisible. Sometimes the only victory possible is simply to live. Why we keep asking for more? Because the film doesn't finish. It leaves open space where the audience must eat with tension, discomfort, and reflection. It refused steady endings, it refused moral resolution, it refused to turn survival into spectacle. That's why it resonates not as entertainment but as a meditation on the nature of endurance, identity, and life itself. The movie as a meditation on absence, just life before taking. Her death is defined by absence of safety, absence of support, absence of recognition. Her death as a reclamation of space, a literal and figurative returns from absence. The film subtly asks how do you exist when the world refuses to acknowledge your reality? The quiet answer you create your own space even if it means erasing yourself from everyone else's narrative. The partially disappearance, the genius of the movie is how it portrays survival as a cognitive embodied act. Jet calculates constantly, not out of cleverness but necessity. Her body reacts before her mind and fully articulate each hesitation, glance of pause sees a decision point in a map of survivors only she can read. It's exhausting to watch, and that's deliberate. The audience is invited to experience the role of hyper-vigilance without the relief of cinematic shortcuts mirrored everywhere. Its a claim, social and manipulative presence act as a mirror not just for Jet but for the audience. He reflects our assumption, charm, harmless, claim, safe. He exposes how easily perception can be weaponized. He makes us conflict in doubting just before we understand the full picture. The horror is subtle, is not a monster in the shadows. It's a person who thrives in the space society, ignorance, survival as moral complexity. The movie repeatedly refused to reward good behavior, lying, necessary, manipulating, necessary, killing nothing but time and appearance, necessary survival itself become killing nothing but time and appearance, necessary survival itself become the highest ethics acts, even if it violates conventionally morality. The lesson is incompatible but honest existence. Trump's right now's time as elastic life is fragment. Notice how the film treats time. Fear stretches to into eternity, escapes collapsing into urgent fleeting moments. Ultimate feels muted, hollow. This mirror how trauma reshapes perception. Life becomes a series of elastic, fragmented events, not a coherent narrative, and the audience feels this subconsciously trapped in the same nervous system as Jed. The quiet violence of recognition, one of the most profound things the film does is show that simply being recognized as a human being is violent in its absence. Every doubt, every dismal, every minimization is a small erasure. Every time Jade is ignored or disbelieved, pieces of her life are taken. Her death is the only way to stop the erasure. The violence isn't always physically, the violence is externally. Silence as resistance. The final scans are quite almost unbelievably so triumph music, no dramatic confrontation, no vindication. The silence itself becomes the statement surviving, existing, continuing. That's resistance, that is victory. The film teaches that living after trauma is not performance, it's a quiet, uncelebrated, and unbreakable to the outside world, and yet internally it's monumental. Why more it is endless. You ask for more because the movie doesn't give closure, no revenge, no catharsis, no neat moral resolution, only survival, continued existence, and the weight of experience. It leaves a space in the mind, a reflective emptiness that cannot be filled with lot of explanation. And that is the point. Some truth unresolved, they are endured scan by scan breakdown. Every pause, camera angle, sound, and gestures, and how it communicates trauma, symbolic reading. The object, rooms, and space as mirror of shared psychology, state, existential mapping. how the film structure mirrors the lived experience of traumas as recovery. We can go frame by frame. Alright, now we are going movie into the absolute core of the movie. Resonance, the level where every moment, every silence, every gesture is part of a meditation on survival, identity, and the fragility of being. This is beyond flawed beyond character. This is existential anatomy thought cinema or the geometry of survival. The film frames survival as a spatial problem, says life is constantly confined by walls, thresholds, and space that cannot occupy safely. Rooms become cages, doorways become thresholds of great hellish eco-isolation. Her death opens new space, not just internal freedom but physically latitude. The brilliance is in showing that safety is geometry. It's not just especially a person that's finding a space where existence is possibly survival as a nervous system experience. Every decision that we make is preemptive, anticipatory, and embodies. She fences before the danger arrives. She calculates before speaking the weight every gaze and gesture. The audience is trying to track the micro-tension of survival to feel the embodied streets existence become palpable. The movie isn't just showing events, mapping the neural architecture of fear. It as a mirror of social complexity. It isn't only a person trait, he is a mirror of society complexity. Claim calm, socially admired, superficially charming, thriving because everyone sees what they want to see. His control is reinforced by the audience initially trust. The horror is subtle. The real danger is the world's willingness to believe the wrong person over and over. Morality as secondary. Jade lies, deceives, manipulates, and the film never punishes her for it. Survival sometimes demands breaking ethical code. Survival sometimes demands becoming someone unrecognizable. Survival is the ultimate act of moral ambiguity. The film is radically because it tributes the comforting moral framing of most thrillers, times as subjective, life as fracture, trauma distorts times, and the film captures this trait, retrace infinitely, escapes collapse into frantic immediate bursts. Swiftly, the swirl is muted, almost anticlimactic. The audience feels the This disorientational living inside Jade's nervous system, life after trauma isn't linear, it's a fractured series of continuation recognition as violence. The film teaches a brutal truth: not being recognized as human is a slow, constant violence. Disbelief, doubt, and dismissal groundly erased life. Her death is the only way to stop the erasure and reclaim existence. Survival becomes a reclaiming act not just of life but identity itself. Silence as radical resistance. The film escapes are almost unbearable in their quietness. No music, no confrontation, no external validation. The silence itself communicates power and defines. The movie suggests that the most radical act after trauma is simple persistence, existence, living itself become resistance, unadorned, unclearable, endless resistance. You ask for more because the film doesn't give closure, no revenge, no catharsis, no steady moral resolution, only survival, continued existence, and the weight of lived experience. He leaves a reflective emptiness as space to inhabit rather than a story to finish. Some truths cannot be solved, they can only be endured, felt, and held. At this point, we can go even deeper, dissecting scan by scan, visual and auditory clue how the camera, lighting, and sound communicate trauma without dialogues. Every silence, pause, and gesture, what they reveal about fear, calculation, and survival. Symbolic and existential mapping connection. The film's space, objects, and narrative structure to the lived experience of trauma. We can go frame by frame, each shot a meditation on survival itself. Survival as especially consequences. Judge life is mapped thought space of constraint and control. Rooms are cages, doors are thresholds of traits, corridors, ego is isolation. Every frame visually communicates where she is allowed to exist safely and where she isn't. The act of disappearing it is also capitally faking. Her death opens new territory, a space where she can claim herself outside that shadow. The film teaches that survival is not only action, it's a geometry, hypervigilance as embodied experience. The brilliance of the film is how it makes the audience feel judged. Nervous system, she reacts before danger arrives, hesitates before speaking, watch micro expressions guiding threat. The camera sounds, designs and editing all emit life. This tension we don't just see fear, we inhabit it. Survival is an embodies calculation, lead moment to moment. It as a social mirror. Its means is subtle, his claim charming, socially respect the audience, entirely trust him. The film force used to confront our own assumption that danger isn't just personal, it's a social. The world's often seems abuser performance rather than we. Victims pain, horror embrace not from our violence but from invisibility of suffering, survival as versus morality. Judge bans reality deceives, manipulates, and movies never convince her. Survival demands ethical ambiguity. Moral rightness cannot guarantee existence. Living becomes the radically act more than any judgment. The film refuses a comforting moral resolution. Survival itself becomes the ethically core. Elastic time and fractal experience. The structure mirror trauma, danger stretched infinitely, planning comparison into urgent bursts. Aftermath is muted, almost anticlimactic. We experience time as just does fragment, distorted, urgent, existing, recognition, and erasure. One of the most haunting ideas, disbelief in violence, each doubt of dismissal chips away its identity. The fact that with that erosion, survival becomes an act of reclaimed selfhood. The film shows that existence itself can be an act of defiance, silence as power. The ending is radical because it is almost entirely silent. No dream, no revenge, no celebration. Persistence itself becomes the statement. The quiet says living after trauma is victory enough. The infinite resourcefulness. This is why the story keeps demanding more. No TD closure, no catharsis, only consumption and endurance. It leaves a space in the mind, a reflective emptiness where the weight of survival itself it fails. Some truths aren't meant to resolve, they are meant to be endured in and inhabited, and this level the next steps in frame by frame meditation. Every camera angle, shadow, sound cue, and Hobbes visually composition makes fear and agency. How silence, space, and gesture convey trauma without dialogues. We can go short by short, revealing how every element of the film communicates survival itself. Now we are fully in the deepest possible layer. Behind story, behind characters, behind plot, we are in the physically and sensory architecture of survival itself. Every frame, sound, and silence become meditation on existence under threat, agency reclaimed, and the quiet violence of recognition. This is the level where the movie stops being a film and become an experience you inhabit. Survival as a topography of the mind. The movie presents life as a map of safe and unsafe spaces. Rooms are cages, doors are boundaries to negotiate. Values echo constant vigilance. Each step in measured windows hint at freedom, yet remains buried. Faking her death is not just literal, it's a cartography. It redraws the map of the own life, claiming territory where she can finally exist unobtrusive and unjudged. Every frame reinforces this, especially spatial conjugation that the camera angles trap, isolate, or sometimes liberates, reflecting her psychology. Landscape embodies cognition and hyper awareness. The film embraces you as injured nervous system. Her body reacts before her mind fully processes events. Every hesitation, fence, or pause in micro calculation in the real life dialogues often underplay the danger. The tension lives in breath and eye movements and posture. The audience doesn't watch. Survival we inhabit in experience, exhaustion, alternance, and constant mental calculation. Trauma imposes the humor of socially micro isn't a monstrous caricature. He is calm, charismatic, socially validated. The film forces you as to confront the subtle horror danger even in normalcy. The real terror comes not from our aggressions but from a world that prefers to trust appearance over lived truth. Every close up and lingering shot reminds us how easy it is to believe the suffering of others. Survival as radically moral. Ambiguity is bend truth, manipulates preparation and deceive it. Yet the film never her life in itself requires typical souls. Ethical compromise become a tool of preservation. The moral compass is replaced by existential necessity. The film defines heroism, living even imperfectly is the ultimate act of resistance. Temporal distortion as trauma. Time in the film micro mirror traumas elastically that create stress endless in second feels prolonged planning compressed into frantic urgent bursts. Safety and resolution arrived muted, almost anticlimactic. We don't just observe, just judge as too much. The film synchronized the audience perception of the time. With her recognition erased and identity, a key insight disable is violence, socially doubt, erodes identity piece by piece, faking death hearts that erosions reclaim her narrative and self-food survival is simultaneously liberation and constantly negative with invisibly. The movie shows that existing on your own terms is itself a radically act. Silence as a statement ending is almost entirely silence, no dramatic vindication, no revenge, no external validation. The quiet communicates persistence is resistance, life uncelebrates and unabandoned become the radically statement. The infinity response this is why the story demands more, no steady closure, no need catharsis, only continuation induced and the weight of experience. Some truths can be solved, they can only be held in habit and reflection upon it. This level, the next frontier is framed by frame meditation. Every camera angle, shadow, pause, and gesture, how light, sound, and composition maps fear and agency, how silence, space, and micro movement communicates trauma without dialogues. We can go shot by shot, analyzing how the film structure becomes a lived experience of survival itself. When it begins that ultimate microscopically breakdown, fully impressive